Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's hearing. The date is September 7th, 2023, and this is case REZ2022-00019. It's a request to rezone property in Lehigh Acres conventionally from CPD and RS1 to either CG or CC, depending on how the conversation goes today. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll provide is the truth? Yes. Okay, thank you. With respect to how we'll go this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me, first we're going to hear from the applicant. They'll present their request in the case and call any witnesses that they may have to support that request. Then we're going to hear from the county staff, who will present their review of the case and their recommendation. Because it is a conventional rezoning, there are no conditions or deviations that are applicable, so it would simply be an indication of their review of the appropriate district. After that, we will call members of the public that are here that would like to place comments on the record. Then we will come back to the applicant and the staff for their rebuttal testimony and closing remarks. So with that, we can get started with the applicant whenever you're ready. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Al Quattrone with Quattrone and Associates. We represent the applicant. This is a brief outline of our presentation. So the request, the applicant, Louis B. Mudez, is requesting a conventional rezoning for 9 parcels, which is 11 platted lots, making up 2.8 acres from CPD and RS1 to CG. And we're aware staff's recommendation is for us to go to a CC zoning. So I just want to put on record, we have no objection to that, and we're fine with that. I did try to scrub out where we had CG in the presentation, but I just missed it on the very first page. Okay. So my presentation will be referencing mostly the CC zoning.
I do have a copy of that here that you provided. Okay, so that would be Applicant's Exhibit 1, and your 48-hour letter is Applicant's Exhibit A. Okay. Thank you.
The 9 parcels are located at the southeast corner of Lee Boulevard and Lee Street. Lee Boulevard, obviously an arterial roadway, and Lee Street is a county-maintained minor collector road. These are the addresses for the 9 properties, and the property is currently undeveloped. 8 of the parcels are already zoned CPD by Resolution Z08051 under DCI 2007-00048. And back then they did a DCI 2013-00002 to extend the expiration, which obviously is a moot point these days. There was an existing development order, DOS 2016-00010, for construction of a commercial retail with associated parking, drainage, utilities, and landscaping. That was approved December 21st of 2018. The applicant intends to modify this DO to eliminate the Lee Boulevard entrance, and then we have submitted an application, a limited review development order to Lee County for a driveway on the easternmost parcel, which is the 9th parcel that we're adding to this. I'll go over that a little bit more because I think staff is going to have some input on that as well. So I'll go through the rest of it and then we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. Subject properties within the urban community future land category. Proposed CC zoning and permitted uses in this district are compatible with existing and or zoned surrounding land uses and consistent with the character intended development patterns of the area. To the north is Lee Boulevard right-of-way, and across Lee Boulevard is the Magda Maze CPD, which is being used by Rossman Realty Property Management. And east of that is a single-family home, and then east of that is RS1, vacant lots. The property to the east of this is RS1, and there are some partially developed lots, but the lot immediately east of us is vacant. To the south is Lee Circle right-of-way, and across Lee Circle are other RS1 zone lots which are partially developed. To the west is the Lehigh Commerce Commercial Partners, which is an O'Reilly Auto Parts and a Family Dollar store. This is our location map. Again, to the north is the office building across the right-of-way, and then to the west is the O'Reilly's and the discount store, and then to the south are just other single-family lots as well as to the east. Policy 1.1.3, the property surrounded by commercial uses zone CPD and can be considered infill development. The project has infrastructure and public services available to accommodate the CC zoning, including water, sewer, electric cable, and public safety services. This policy encourages future development in central urban land use category and urban community as mixed use, making it consistent with policy 1.1.3. Policy 1.6.5, the property is located within District 17, Lehigh Acres Planning District, and it has allocated to it 900 acres of commercial lands and 218 acres of industrial lands. The proposed 2.8 acre CC commercial zoning is consistent with policy 1.6.5. Objective 2.1, rezoning the subject parcels to, I don't know why it says C2, should say CC, will promote contiguous and compact growth in Lehigh Acres planning community. The property is being located adjacent to Lee Boulevard makes it suitable for commercial uses. Development exists adjacent to the subject property on the west and in close proximity on the north. Subject property is therefore considered infill development, making it consistent with Objective 2.1. Objective 2.2, subject property is located on Lee Boulevard, which is a 6-lane arterial, and is separated by commercial properties to the west of Lee Street. The request will promote development in compact and contiguous development, making it consistent with Objective 2.2. Policy 2.2.1, the subject commercially zoned property has access to Lee Boulevard by way of Lee Circle, Lee Street, and then the previous development order does have the driveway on Lee Boulevard as well. Property is located within the FGUA service franchise area for central sewer and water, within the Lehigh Acres Fire District. Also, the Lehigh Acres Sheriff's Department serves this area. We have Lee Tran Bus Route 110 to serve this area and Bus Stop 12243. The requested rezoning is consistent with Policy 2.2.1. Policy 2.2.3, the property lies within the Lehigh Acres planning community and is in compliance with the Lee Plan acreage allocation table. Policy 4.1.1 and 4.1.2, utility services available to the project. Again, making it consistent with those two policies. 4.1.4, environmental assessment of protected species has been conducted. There are no environmentally sensitive areas on the property. I will point out, as mentioned below, we did get a South Florida Water Management District permit for this. There was a very low quality wetland that we mitigated 4 years ago with South Florida. So that's been addressed. And again, we're in the FGUA service area. So the prior CPD was approved with a maximum of 40,000 square feet of commercial floor area, including 20,000 square feet of commercial retail, and included various retail uses that are typically highest trip generators, such as restaurants, hardware stores, food stores, banks, retail shops, and personal services. Although the property abuts residential zoning to the east, and there is residential zoning south across from Lee Circle, the change from CPD and RS1 to CC zoning is not anticipated to create additional impacts that have not already been contemplated or approved. The change from CPD and RS1 to CC is not anticipated to increase intensity, and it's not expected to generate substantial additional trips from the project site that have not already been considered or approved in prior CPD. All roads will continue to have adequate level of service. Buffers will be provided in compliance with the Land and Development Code, as there's no deviations being requested with the conventional rezone. Policy 6.1.4, the proposed rezoning will provide for consumer-oriented commercial uses that will provide much-needed services to the surrounding residential community as determined necessary by the county and described in many areas of the LEAP plan, making it consistent with 6.1.4. Policy 6.15, the subject property is an area where capacity exists on the adjacent roadway network, making it consistent with 6.1.5. Subject property will not have adverse impacts on landscaping, open space, or buffering. We'll be providing the required open space and buffers for the LDC, making it consistent with 6.1.6. As mentioned, the property has been zoned commercial since 2009, with the exception of the easternmost lot. The proposed development is surrounded by other commercial development, and this is infill, making it consistent with 6.1.7. Here's a map of the Lehigh community plan. Describes the area as a Tier 1, which largely serves Lehigh by existing public services and facilities, developed road networks, and the bulk of Lehigh commercial development is in Tier 1. As far as LEAP plan consistency, we complies with the LEAP plan as detailed above in the request, is consistent with goals, objectives, policies, and intent of the LEAP plan. this project meets the code and other applicable county regulations, or qualifies of deviation is the standard language, but as mentioned, this being conventional, we are not asking for deviations, so we comply with this. Would be project is compatible with existing and planned uses in the surrounding area. We will provide access sufficient to support the proposed development. The expected impacts on transportation facilities will be addressed by existing county regulations and conditions of approval through the development order and through subsequent DO amendments. Project will not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive areas and natural resources and will be served by urban services defined in the Lee Plan. In conclusion, in accordance with the above, the proposed rezoning from CPD and RS1 to CC complies with the Lee County Comprehensive Plan, Lee County Land Development Code, is compatible with existing or planned uses in the surrounding area, provides sufficient access to support proposed commercial development, will not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive areas and natural resources, and will be served by adequate urban services. For these reasons, the applicant respectfully requests that the rezoning to CC be approved. So with that, I don't know if you want me to talk a little bit more about this driveway, which is, I think staff is
If you
here.
could. Yeah, those were, the two issues obviously was the first one you've agreed to, which was the zoning
Yes.
district, and then the second being the access. But just in general, so you're adding essentially just the RS1 lot,
Yes.
but asking, it seems like predominantly for the same uses. So was there a consideration to just amend the CPD to add that lot?
We couldn't amend, my understanding is we couldn't amend the CPD because they're changing the boundaries. We would have had to apply for a brand new CPD. And with the way the codes read now, or staff's change of a support for conventional rezonings, back then when we did this project, conventional zonings weren't encouraged very much. Now they are. It's a much simpler process, so we chose to take advantage of that. The only hair on it was the fact that we had a development order that has a driveway that was approved through a deviation in that CPD. So we had been coordinating with Lee County DOT, particularly Rob Price, and PAC, and also Odette. So what we talked to them about doing was, so this is the additional lot that we're adding. Make sure I got my lots right, yeah. So this particular lot right here is what had the right in, right out. So what we did was, because this lot is a standalone lot right now, and it's actually under separate ownership, LLCs, but it's owned by the same person. So what Development Services said to do is submit a limited review development order for a driveway going into this property right here. And then we spoke to PAC earlier today, and what he would like us to do, he's reviewed that, he's okay with it, he's seen the memo or email from our Price. He's asking us to submit a development order amendment concurrently to remove this driveway, and he would act on both of those applications at the same time. So he would approve eliminating the driveway on the existing DO, and at the same time approve our proposed driveway.
Okay, so the DO, the 2016 DO that's been issued, that is consistent with the existing master concept plan?
Yes.
And that remains the intended use and design of the property? So essentially all you're doing is adding that lot, moving the location of the Lee Boulevard access further east, and otherwise maintaining everything as it essentially was.
Essentially it is, and there's plans down the road to, there is a little bit more property left over for potentially a phase 2 on that property. There's a gap. There's talks about adding a fast food restaurant. Again, uses that were approved before. So, as far as whether or not he's gonna go build what we have on the development order, we don't know. But the previous zoning or the new zoning gives him the flexibility to change things around. The new zoning not being tied to a master concept plan, that's the other advantage of conventional. It does make it easier to change something if he does want to change it.
And the access that's on Lee Street, that's still retained as well? So you've got dual access points serving the property?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was discussion in your narrative, because essentially the two conditions that you would be losing in terms of protecting the public were the hours of operation and the buffer enhancements. But it seemed like in your narrative you were saying that the buffer enhancements weren't truly enhancements because of the use that you were intending. The LDC was going to require that type of buffering anyway?
Typically, yeah, the LDC has enhanced buffering requirements for certain types of commercial uses, whether it's, I believe it's drive-throughs as well. So really, I think in the CPD, the really only main thing was that deviation for the driveways, from what we can tell.
Okay. And the DO, it's just very small in what I have, it's a single building, and what, is it a pharmacy? Is that the intent?
That was intended to be, yes, a pharmacy with a drive-through.
Okay. I think that was the extent of my questions for now. I'd like to hear from staff on the
Okay.
issue of access as well. Thank you. Thank you. Just for housekeeping, staff's presentation will be Staff Exhibit 2, and Staff Exhibit 1 was the staff report.
Good afternoon, Dirk Danley, Lee County Zoning. With me today, I have Brian from Development Services and Rakib, who's also in Development Services, but is representing DOT's interest in this rezoning as well. Rakib has not been accepted as an expert witness. Before we get into this discussion, if you want to, if at your leisure, if you want to go ahead and work through accepting him as an expert witness ahead of time, so when questions arise, you're able to.
Certainly.
Okay, do you want to come up? So Rakib does have a resume. It's not on file with you, but he does have it here, and he can answer any questions that you have.
If you could provide me, and then I'll accept that. That'll be Staff's Exhibit 3. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you could just briefly state your experience specifically with Land Development Code, Lee County, Lee Plan issues in the context of your educational background, that would be helpful.
My name is MD Rakibul Alam. I have a PhD in civil engineering from Florida International University. My PhD topic was mostly transportation engineering to understand public travel behavior at individual level or in transit level. And then I joined, right after my graduation, I joined transportation consultancy firm in Dallas. And I mostly prepared the traffic impact statement and parking studies and some land use application, this kind of work at Dallas. And later, last year, October, I joined Lee County and as a senior transportation planner. And here I mostly review the zoning cases and the complaint amendment and collaborate in annual concurrency transportation table, the transportation part, and also involved in various kinds of transportation planning projects. So overall, if I conclude, I have almost 6 years of experience in transportation, in civil engineering, focusing on transportation planning and management. Yep.
Thank you. I didn't have any questions. Did the applicant have any objection? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, once again, Dirk Danley. To go just briefly into this, we did have the discussion about the CG versus CC. I do have a little bit of analysis on that. I won't go into too much detail because there's an agreement. This is the previous master concept plan. There's actually 2 alternates that are approved within the original zoning case. The reason why we bring up the master concept plan is just to show that there was an approved access point here on the, I believe it's south, north, somewhere to the east. Here and then here as well. And when you look at the aerials, you can see there's actually a notch out for a turn lane already on Lee Street as well. So there is a development order that's already been issued and approved that the applicant's already stated. We had concern over, the access point, the procedure that Mr. Patron listed out. I believe we all have comfort with, but we still have DOT and Development Services represented here in the room in case there needs to be any more discussion on that. But it is a limited review development order that would come in. I believe it can't be approved until after this zoning case comes to its conclusion because it is an RS1 lot. But at the same time, this piece would then come out, or this access point would come out, and the one on this property here would then be approved. Like I said, I don't want to belabor the point, but the reason why we got stuck on the CG zoning district is it speaks to being a little less sensitive to surrounding uses and isn't really considered for neighborhoods. In a lot of Lehigh, the residential uses and the commercial uses are right up against each other along Lee Boulevard. So we asked the applicant to consider that. These are some of the uses that are permitted in CG that are not permitted in CC. The one that really stuck out to me was contractor and builders group 3. That includes fabrication work, outdoor storage of heavy machinery, and some other things that would typically be substantially incompatible with the surrounding area. Truck stops, transportation services group 3. There's some intense uses here that we weren't comfortable with. Just to go quickly through the decision-making criteria, we do think the CC district does meet these decision-making criteria. It is compatible with the surrounding areas. We do feel like it complies with the LEE plan. There will be some procedural work to be done with the access point, which has some land development code issues with it in Chapter 33. But that we'll have to sort through that through the development order process. In terms of whether or not the transportation facilities should be able to support it, this was already previously approved, as the applicant stated, as a commercial use with significant trips. Moving forward, we still find that there will be sufficient support there for the property. It does not adversely impact environmentally critical areas, and does have urban services. Just go briefly through some of the LEED plan. This is in the central urban future land use category, which considers a mix of residential and commercial uses, particularly in the form of Lehigh. A lot of it is commercial and residential uses married up next to each other, even splitting the block. As you roll down the block, it's some commercial, some residential. So we find that the use, if the zoning district pulled back to a CC, is typically compatible with the future land use category and its context in Lehigh as well. We do find it meets the objectives 2.1 and 2.2 about encouraging new growth in future urban areas where adequate infrastructure exists, and that there's enough infrastructure in the area to actually facilitate its development. We did find it consistent with Goal 6, and that Goal 158, which speaks to providing a positive business climate within Lee County, we did find that it meets that as well. Water in service is serviced by FGUA. There's a utility availability letter provided in the application or in the staff report. Fire and emergency services are 1 mile away. This is served by Lee Tran Route 110, and it is on the Lee Plan Map 3D. With that, going back, we do recommend approval of the CC district. We're here with any questions that you may have.
The question really just comes back to the access, because it is a little bit of a quagmire in terms of the timing of how it all gets approved, because as Mr. Roberts pointed out, and I think it was attachment J, to find the findings that we have to have of its consistency, I don't know if there's anything that anybody can put on the record about 25.8, I think it's 0.3, and just the discouragement of direct access to Lee Boulevard.
It isn't a straight denial of access. It encourages an alternative. It discourages it directly onto Lee Boulevard, and that's the Lee plan requirement where a deviation isn't available. There is a deviation available, and DOT has given kind of not an approval, but a go-ahead that the location that the applicant's shown is a good location, and I agree. Engineering-wise, the further you are away from that intersection, the better off you are. The applicant has also donated right-of-way and money for lights. So engineering-wise, it's a good thing. It's procedural-wise where the catch is, and that's the issued development order that shows the access. I agree completely with the applicant that that's a viable development order. Now, I also would hesitate removing that from that development order for the purpose of not having it and hoping I would get another access point. But Chapter 10 requires a deviation to be approved prior to a development order approval. So in essence, what we're going to get is we're going to get a commercial zoning district with no ability to add a condition with an approved development order that, yeah, we're saying that we're going to remove that point, but it's kind of hinging on an LDO somewhere else. So all in all, it's a better outcome. It's just how do we get there? And the way it is now, short of doing something with the existing development order simultaneously, which I think is the intent, we're just not at that point yet. And I don't know if it's just a timing thing or if it's something that you know, in 30 days it would resolve or how it would work. But the LDO can't be approved till the zoning. They don't want to give up the access till the zoning's approved. So that's kind of where we stand.
And that's exactly, because there was some inconsistency within the staff report, because attachment J was very clear about that, but then the narrative of the staff report seemed to indicate that the direct access to Lee was warranted in this case, but there wasn't a real fleshing out of compliance with that policy. So that's the only hesitation, I guess, that I have, and it may just be something that we just need to bolster a little bit on the record. I can't recall where I read it. I think it was in maybe attachment J. I don't even know what this was from. It was from the community planning minutes, I'm assuming from when the DO was presented back in 2017. And there was some discussion from the panel about not wanting a rear access in the DO that was shown at the time because of the residential component that you've got to the south. So because it's a discouragement and not a prohibition, I can definitely see the desire to allow it to continue. I just need that stated specifically on the record, because right now in the record I've got both, right? Like I don't have a clear policy from staff about what
In the end, it's a betterment in Development Services' opinion with regards to the intersection and the additional separation.
Okay, so staff does support it,
It's just the procedural aspect of it, how it happens, so that they're assured that they have the access point, that they're not going to lose it, and that we make sure we don't end up with two of them.
And I appreciate that, because my next question was if it was even ripe to be heard yet, because there was also discussion about a DO amendment that was going to happen, or you just mentioned an LDO, I think, that will happen, but because they haven't happened, but now it's sounding like we can't just allow time for that to occur, because you're actually waiting for this zoning to be approved before you take those actions?
Well, I wasn't aware that we couldn't get an LDO because it's zoned residential, so that's something that Brian just informed me. But we do have an LDO in review by staff right now.
To relocate to the eastern?
Yes, to relocate to eastern parcel, and PAC started reviewing it.
And there might be availability to go straight to a right-of-way permit to get the work done in the right-of-way to show the moving of the access point without the DO going through the DO, but I don't know what that impacts long-term.
I was going to say, the other thing too is Development Services may be able to issue the approval for the LDO with a very clear condition that this is contingent upon DOS such and such being approved to show that the other driveway is being removed. So they might be able to just do it through stipulations on their end, because we'll have two approvals, the LDO and the DO amendment, and I would assume they could stipulate it that way, and we're fine with that.
There have been stipulations done between on-site and off.
Yes.
LDOs and development orders, LDOs reading stipulations that go between the development order and off-site improvements in an LDO. So that has been done before.
And typically, we wouldn't even be talking about this at a zoning, because that's just outside the scope of what I can do. And without a condition, then again, it's just this handcuffing of, as long as I've got some assurance from staff's analysis that there's support to maintain the access on Lee, then I think there's still as long as I can find the consistency with that policy.
And that came from DOT relatively not too long ago.
Okay.
Right, and that's included in the 48-hour letter.
I saw that back on correspondence.
Yeah, so I think in principle, we're all under the impression that an access point will be there at the end of all of this. It's just a matter of all the boxes being checked in an appropriate time.
Okay, so there's
And it will be better than what could be there currently.
okay, so staff's position again is just that there's no inconsistency with Lee Plan Policy 25.8.3. Okay.
And it is our intention to submit that DO amendment, if not tomorrow, early next week. It's a very simple submittal for us, so the thought would be that that's potentially approvable before you would even get around to writing your staff report, to make sure everybody does what they say we're doing.
Okay.
If that makes you feel any better.
Thank you. We did have a member of the public here, so I want to be sure we get to that. So I'll go ahead and call. I've got Derek Felder. Good afternoon.
Derek Felder for the record. I guess My question is, with all this confusion, why not just do a new CPD? Wouldn't that be easier and solve all of that? I could be wrong, but question is, why wasn't this built already? Why do you need to do? Why do you need to add that other lot that's residential and move the driveway when you had approval for it? It's good that the driveway would be moved farther away from Lee Street, but it was approved, so why wasn't it just built? I'm in favor of it being a CVS. We have one CVS in all of Lehigh for 140,000 people. We definitely need it. I hope that's what it's going to be. If there's an additional fast food restaurant or something on there too, awesome too. If you didn't do the entrance on Lee Boulevard, I would like to see the one on Lee Street, obviously, but then, you know, could you make that a four-way stop at Kenneth off the backside, you know, and get rid of the Lee Boulevard potentially entrance, so that the property still has the two entrances? I think that's pretty much what I had.
Thank you. And just in general, you don't have to give an address, but do you live in the general vicinity,
In the general vicinity of here, no. I mean, in Lehigh,
farther south or farther
close to
downstream?
the other CVS, but
Okay, thank you.
so this will take the busyness of that one away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Okay, so coming back, were there any comments that you wanted to address?
Well, just that, you know, why the project got delayed was economy reasons and so on. And the guy, our client, had been pursuing actually the lot that we added, plus the lot that does tee at Kenneth Avenue. He wasn't able to acquire the other one. We've always encouraged him, saying the more lots you have, it gives us, if nothing else, it gives us more flexibility with drainage and open space. So from that standpoint, that's why I say I don't think this will be any more intense than the original CPD had. It gives us a little more flexibility for green space and drainage, because we were getting a little tight on that when we were doing our design the last time, which is one reason why we left off the fast food at that time.
Okay, so coming back to this other issue, what was the timing you just said of the DO amendment? When would you have that?
We'll have that in no later than early next week, Monday, Tuesday, so.
Okay. My question, I'm thinking out loud, is on the record, which I tend not to do, but if I leave the record open for a week to allow you and staff to review that and just provide something to the office of whether that bolsters a consistency finding, I would feel more comfortable doing that, because right now, again, with the record that we have, it's just a little disjointed. So if you're confident of that timing, then that's what I would do. I would leave the record open for 1 week, which would be September 14th,
Okay.
just to provide a written verification jointly if possible, just saying that it's been submitted and it's been reviewed in compliance with the findings that you've got to provide here in the staff report, and how that affects the findings that then I can make
Okay.
to find whether or not it's consistent. So with that, was there anything else that staff wanted to put on the record before we concluded? Okay. Okay, thank you. And thank you for coming today, sir. Since you came, you will get a copy of the decision once it's released, and I appreciate everyone coming today. Please stay well and stay safe.
Thank you.